But as you said, Tatum not great. Brown a brutal game, zero focus the whole time, both with the turnovers. The one he got picked from behind, he didn't get caught. He actually turned around and saw the guy behind him, then kept dribbling and got stripped anyway. I mean, some of that stuff was just brutally bad. And as I said, falling asleep off the ball on defense there, just lazy. And again, the Stars set the tone. Tatum said the other night when he had a massive bounce back, obviously against the Lakers, that the night before Joe basically had the "you're playing like an asshole" speech that, I think Ime would give those guys from time to time. And he responded. But the thing he says to them is, these guys follow your friggin' lead. So you want to look at the trickle-down effect it's had on the other guys who finally come back down to earth. You're going to always start with the stars. Those guys play well. Those guys commit to moving the ball, moving their feet, moving without the ball, setting screens, keeping things going, keeping their teammates involved. You're more likely to keep your teammates involved. I don't think it's a coincidence that, as we pointed out, Sam Hauser fallen off a cliff. He went from 46 to 27% threes from November to December. Derek White from 47 to 29. Marcus Smart from 46 to 31. All of these guys have dropped off tremendously. And that's because I think you're stuck taking contested threes or, whatever it is, opportunities. They're just, I don't know. I mean, you can say everything is a good look if somebody's not directly in your face, but it's just not in flow anymore as it was before. So I think it really is incumbent on the Stars to get back to what they were doing before and trusting each other and playing that style of basketball. I think that's, again, this is frustrating because we're a couple of years into this, Bobby. The ticket to succeeding. Move the ball, move without the ball, don't play the hero ball, don't try to do too much, and good things happen. But they've fallen back into that pattern of trying to do a little bit too much.
Yeah, and Smart's been okay over this stretch. I don't want to put it on him, but
I'm not. I'm just saying that the shooting has come back down.
Well, yeah, I'm sorry. I'm saying when the shooting comes down, you do start to see him try to solve it at times by launching a few. I don't know how many he had exactly in this one, but feels like guys are trying to solve it themselves at times. Tatum in this one definitely was putting up shots, trying to power them back. Works a little better for Brown, but you get the turnovers with it. When you're playing from behind, he's going to get a little bit sloppier. So I think you see him get out of the flow of the offense too. And then Smart, 8 assists in this one. 1 turnover. So you really can't blame him. And even during that stretch where they're trying to come back there in the third quarter, you see him getting the group together at half court after the Tatum technical. And that was really the killer. I mean, Horford gets ejected. Brown turns it over at midcourt after a stop. They get it right into Wagner. Tatum fouls him. He picks up a tech. Another free throw right there. So it's sort of 7 points within a 3-possession span between the Horford ejection and the Tatum tech there. And that put them down 16. Midway through the third quarter, early third there. So That set a terrible tone. They gave up baskets in isolation pretty much every time they started to get a little thing going. So they weren't connected tonight on either end. And you're just not seeing that flow, like you said, offensively there. And you wonder what part fatigue's starting to play in this. And this is where you're going to get on Joe. Leaving them in against the Clippers, 38 for Tatum tonight, 36 for Brown. He keeps getting asked night in and night out, man, those starter numbers are a little high here. Guys aren't coming out late in games. You're not kind of shaving off minutes here or there. And he's just sort of brushed it off. And that's one of the explanations that's possible here, right? Fatigue, a little burnt out after that 6-game road trip. Horford's out, so some guys are overcompensating at center. Some guys are filling in the middle a little bit. It's part of the equation, I'm sure.
Yeah. And, we've talked a lot about it, Bobby, you and I, the offense, defense sort of thing. Like, this is where defense obviously comes into play. Why, I don't want anyone to take out of context my thoughts about defense. I believe defense is a matter of choice, and I believe offense is something totally different. They had to commit to something completely different. They needed some personnel changes. They needed a totally new mentality and identity on offense. Their defense is just simply, again, commitment to doing what they do well. When you have all of these guys out here, when you get Rob back, you should be able to play defense. So you need, on nights like this, when the shots aren't falling, you have to dig deep and find that. You can't shoot your way out of everything. On nights when the shot isn't falling, you got to win a rock fight by bearing down and playing good defense. They didn't do either tonight.
No, and it got worse as the game went on. Again, they put up a little fight there in the third.
It never improved at all. The whole game.
Yeah, it didn't. This one's startling, especially when you think of the crowd. And like, I don't want to do the whole, the crowd, but this place was dead. People left early fourth. They knew this team didn't have it. Then you got the boos post game, probably a little too late on those. But this crowd knew that the team was dead tonight, wasn't really giving it their all. And they responded by trying to rev them up at certain moments here. But the team just gave them nothing to cheer about outside those little rob stretches. And this is a little startling right now. And I think we talked about during the West Coast stretch right there. I forget who was on. I think Jimmy on the game you took off against the Lakers there. Jimmy asked me, are you concerned by some of the things that went on late in this trip? And man, imagine if they lose that Lakers game, what we're talking about right now, a 4-game losing stretch and an awful one at that. You're getting worried about some of the things we've talked about, even through the success. Turnovers starting to creep up, 3-point reliance, how hard they have to work to get these looks in the half court at the very least. And then not getting those easy go-ahead baskets anymore that we saw from early in the schedule, even though they've moved into the top 10 defensively, which is kind of weird. I think that goes back to disconnectedness too. Like they're just not in a flow right now. And I don't know why that is. It almost feels like no one's there to sort of rally them. And is that the impact of Horford not really being out there for that 5-game stretch? And then this one as well in the second half. I mean, that's just a killer there from Al. I don't know what got into him, probably a mistake, but that added to everything that was going on here, certainly.
Yeah, I honestly, and I hate to put it on one thing, I think Al stays in that game. They probably find enough to pull to make that run and to pull it off.
I mean, he was playing well.
Things got thrown out. Blake was brutal, and you had to go to him because you couldn't do it. Cornette couldn't do anything in this game, and then Rob was just getting gassed. You once again went with 0 bigs. This isn't the type of game where you can go small ball with Grant with the height that Orlando has out there. It's just not going to work. So you really needed some sort of presence there. It threw the whole thing out of whack there, and they got killed on second chance points as well. I mean, Orlando didn't play terrifically on offense either. So, it was, that definitely hurt them. And again, let's look at it. It was 15 offensive rebounds here, for the
Was
Magic.
it another big rebounding disparity?
It was a big one. It was 53. It was 53 to like 40. Let me look it up. It was 53-38. So a pretty big disparity with 15 coming on the offensive glass there.
61 to 47 was a number. So they got beat pretty bad out in LA too. So that's sort of carryover from.
Yeah. So to go back to what you said before.
Yeah.
To go back what you said before, I was totally aghast by the Golden State loss because I was surprised the team could do that again. That was the first time all year.
You talk about that, John, a lot, like those losses that sort of linger and leave a team shaking a little bit. And it's usually the bad ones or mediocre ones, but something lingered there, I think.
The ones that make you question yourself because you're feeling great. Like I said, I use the bully analogy. You're in the schoolyard, you're beating the crap out of anybody, and then somebody walks up and just beats the tar out of you, and you're like, "Am I not that tough? Am I not as tough as I thought?" And then you fight somebody else, and that guy beats you too, and you're like, "Oh my God!" So you're like, I maybe I'm not that tough. Like you start to question something. The Warriors game stuck with them a little bit. I think they were surprised. I think it brought back, I hate speaking in like superficial generalities, but like, if you have a team who, that emasculated you in the finals and you have these losses that haunt you and you were this close to winning a title and you caved and they made you look like shit and you felt really bad about yourself. And then you went out there and they did it to you again. Yeah, that's going to hurt. I don't care what they say. Oh, this game was more about you guys than us. I don't buy it. But then it just exposed like, oh, they can still play like those assholes that Ime would get mad at during periods of time last year. Standing around, iso ball offense, not committing to defense, allowing easy buckets, settling for threes, missing balls at the basket, missing down low and not getting back on defense. Those leak outs during Golden State, those couple of games there, just lazy stuff. And you're like, oh my God, I thought we were completely past that. So it wasn't just the mentality of what that loss might have done to the Celtics psyche. It was, as a fan, you'd watch them basically win in every way imaginable, even win when they hadn't played well. They had a lot of gut check wins, and they were always, talent would just win out in the end. And then just to see them just play that same way that they played last year at times when they were at their absolute worst. I just thought it was a thing in the past. Then you had an absolute sleepwalk effort against the Clippers and another one tonight against Orlando. I mean, those were these are three horrible games out of four. And then, as you mentioned, Bobby, almost losing that Lakers game. So something's off, and they've definitely reverted back to habits that I think a lot of us, myself included, thought they'd kind of matured and grown out of.
Yeah, and who's going to rally them in this spot? You see Smart trying
does
to do it.
Smart tries to, and he tried to tonight a little. He's the only guy who does, and he does pull it in a little, but he couldn't do it all.
You think of in a game like this, as sloppy and disconnected as they were, 10-8-1. That's solid. Yeah, he did his job here. You needed Horford too. Rob probably threw off things a little bit in between, and you're gonna eat that in a game like this to get him integrated again. It's Brown and it's Tatum. It always stems from them. I think Joe's 100% right about that. I don't think Tatum was at his best in terms of activity in this one, and Brown certainly killed them with the turnovers. And he says it himself finally at this point, like he's taken ownership of it, and he said during that worst stretch, road trip there through Atlanta and New Orleans and all that it's lackadaisical, and I think that's what it was again in this one. You talked about the one where he got caught from behind. I talked about the one at midcourt there that you just can't have after a stop, leads to more free throws and attack. Those are killers, and every time the Celtics drew close in this one, the Magic had an answer, either with a steal, block, or isolation pull-up. I mean, what was Markelle Fultz in that second half? Just going right at them. Pull-up twos, the guy who can't shoot, just draining them again and again, pouring in shots at the basket. Mo Wagner took it to them. This one looked a little personal after the Celtics kind of dumped them there a couple years ago. And then, didn't have the bowl revenge game, but I thought he was solid on the boards. They were physical. They were tough. They looked more energetic. And they looked like they had the game plan in this game, frankly, in terms of just kind of letting the Celtics launch and packing that middle with size.
Yeah. And I don't want to hear in the post game, oh, we didn't match their energy. Teams are going to come out for us. Like, you got to find it. Like, you're good enough to play 12 hard minutes and beat teams like this. They couldn't even muster that tonight. That's what's so frustrating is Celtics can sleepwalk through 3/4 of a game against a team like Orlando and then just decide to flip a switch and do it. They never did. That whole second half, you're waiting for it to happen. It never happened. And that's what was so, so frustrating there is that it's Orlando, man. It's hard to fathom that this is the game here.